Hey, in this video I'll be saying the 5 most influential manga of each decade, starting from the 1950s. The condition is that they must have started in that decade. It doesn't matter if it began on the last of December, but it must have started in that decade. Also, this is not in order. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, first, the 1950s. First is, without a shadow of a doubt, Astro Boy. I don't think I have to explain much for this one, but it was, simply put, revolutionary for manga, with it innovating what the sci-fi genre could be in manga, with serious themes like the loss of life and the fear of nuclear weapons, and with it innovating what manga battles can and should look like, how it can be a part of the story instead of just moving the story forward. And I don't think I have to mention this, but Astro Boy also had the first really popular anime ever. Next is Princess Knight. This is another Osaku Tezuka work, but I had to have this here, as it is essentially the precursor to shoujo manga, with the focus of the manga being adventure and romance and moral dilemmas. Like the main character is a girl, but her father, the king of the land, announced to the people that his child is a boy, so the otherwise next in line king wouldn't be king, as it is known that he would repress people, or in short, be evil, because women aren't allowed to be the ruler of the land still. Next, Gigantor. Some of you might already know this work, but for those that don't, Gigantor could be called the manga that shaped mecha anime into what they are today, inspiring works like Evangelion. And with just having read the synopsis, you can immediately tell a few similarities between Gigantor and Evangelion. The biggest of which is that a teenage boy uses robots to save the world from evil. Next, Black Blizzard. This author decided to step away from the Tezuka art style for manga and went for a completely different route, with him taking a lot more of a realistic art style and make a mature story with intense psychological aspects, in essence being the precursor to the seinen genre. And finally, the last work of the 1950s that I'll mention. I'll be honest, it was really hard to find a work to mention here that could stand somewhat alongside the previously mentioned mangas. I mean, Astro Boy. It's the precursor of the sci-fi genre, paneling, and everything that makes manga. Princess Knight, the precursor to shoujo manga. Gigantor, the precursor of the mecha genre, and Black Blizzard, the precursor of seinen manga. After a while, I went with Fuichin-chan. It is another shoujo manga, but this is focused on the character interactions and was very expressive with its art, and in general the lives of schoolgirls. At least that's what I could find about it. Alright, the 1960s. First is probably the best known out of all of these. Doraemon. It will forever be ingrained as an icon of the Japanese children's lives. Scratch that. Even some of you might recognize this cat from your childhood. It could be said that if it wasn't yet, that definitely now, manga had become a staple of Japanese culture. It, compared to pretty much all the works that I've mentioned in this video so far, was a light-hearted comedy. Next is another precursor of a genre, but this one to a lesser extent. Maybe. It's Ashita no Joe, Fighting for Tomorrow. It was probably the most popular sports manga up to that point and is still quite popular today, especially with the recent English Deluxe edition. It showed the struggles of improving and bettering yourself, with brutal realism and of course, the struggles of life. And even now, it's still the second most popular manga in the combat sports genre, only behind Hajime no Ippo. Next, here we go. Himitsu no Ako-chan. Look at this cover and tell me what you think this was a pioneer of. He was the pioneer of the magical girl genre. This girl named Ako broke her favorite mirror and gets gifted a new, compact mirror, from which she can become anything she wants. Next up is the second best-selling manga of all time, tied with Doraemon, Go-Go 13. It introduced and really popularized the anti-hero trope, as the MC was in essence a mercenary for hire, an assassin of sorts. With heavy geopolitical plots and clinical violence, it proved that manga could last for decades, at this point even more than half a century, and still maintain its quality. And finally, Gegege no Kitaro. It was the pioneer of a huge part of what a lot of manga are now, maybe even some of your favorites. It was the pioneer of the yokai/supernatural genre, so demons, ghosts, aliens, and all that jazz. With comedy and horror aspects, it turned this niche genre at the time to the mainstream in Japan. Alright, next up is the 1970s. First is the Rose of Versailles. Versailles, I hope. It was a revolutionary manga for the growing shoujo genre, with its amazing romance, drama, and historic elements happening around the French Revolution. The art was also amazing, especially with the elaborate dresses. Like right now, you might not think it's that big of a deal, but at the time, this was some revolutionary shit. Next up is the pioneer of the space genre, Captain Harlow. This was another really popular manga at the time, and it had a very heavy hate government theme, similar to another popular pirate manga that you might have heard about once or twice in passing. Next is Lone Wolf and Cub. This defined a lot of what the samurai genre in manga is and could be, with it being a revenge story for the main character. Next is a work that you've probably heard of, Devilman. This was an extremely successful manga, with it even having a very good recent adaptation, Devilman Crybaby. It introduced very dark fantasy / horror aspects to manga. Fuck, I might have to rewatch this. Finally, there's Blackjack. It explores human morality, greed, and ethics through the main character who is an unlicensed doctor but is a genius in nature and deals with very strange and rare medical cases. Also, it's another Osaku Tezuka work. The 1980s. First, without a shadow of a doubt, Dragon Ball. I really don't think I need to explain myself on this one too, but Dragon Ball popularized shonen in general a lot, and manga in general worldwide. It is one of, if not the most influential manga of all time, and it will probably stay like that. I remember being a kid and doing kamehamehas with my friends. We didn't even know what anime or manga or even Dragon Ball was back then, but we loved doing those. Dragon Ball took the world by storm and made manga mainstream worldwide. Next up I have is Akira. I'm pretty sure it was the first distant future / cyberpunk manga, or at least it was the one that brought that genre to the spotlight, and of course, it was very popular worldwide, though it's not even close to as popular as Dragon Ball, but that's its own beast entirely. It was still very popular, and quote-unquote, according to the Kodansha CEO, it shattered all borders and was a hit worldwide. Next is a work that was surprisingly inspired by Akira, Fist of the North Star. I know, at first I was like, what? How is this inspired by that? But according to the illustrator of Fist of the North Star, it's true. But the reason I have it here is because it also popularized its setting. It popularized the post-apocalyptic setting for manga and the main elements of the story, being the martial arts and the Nietzschean heroism. I'm gonna pretend I said that correctly. And of course, once again, it was very popular, and it popularized manga as a genre worldwide. Next up is a bit of a unique one compared to the previous ones, Banana Fish. It was a very, very daring manga for the time. If it's serialized now, it'd be no problem, but at the time, you gotta almost admire them for sticking it through and making an amazing story with now amazing ratings, with it being the 103rd best rated manga / manhwa and more. If you don't know, it's an urban crime manga with LGBTQ+ themes and gang violence, and a lot more, showing that shoujo manga didn't necessarily only have to be about romance or something similar. Next is Saint Seiya. This is completely different than Banana Fish, with this one popularizing the armored cosmic battles trope and a lot more, which went on to be quite a popular trope later on. Alright, starting from this decade, there will be a lot less revolutionizing and pioneering, so it'll probably be a lot shorter. The 1990s. First is probably a manga which you were waiting quite a bit for, One Piece. Probably the most successful example of a long-running manga keeping its quality no matter how much time passes. One Piece shook the manga scene with its incredible world building, characters, and amazing and incredibly executed themes, and it'll stay among the most influential manga of all time alongside Dragon Ball for as long as manga is what it is, and of course, it's a part of the big three. Next up is Sailor Moon. It redefined the magical girl genre, with it being mainly a fighting manga, I guess you could say. It became one of the biggest sensations in manga. It could even be comparable to Dragon Ball at times, though I feel like Dragon Ball held up better over time. Next up is one that I really wanted to talk about, Slam Dunk. I think this really popularized sports manga and took it to the next level of popularity in Japan and worldwide, as I could find only 3 sports manga that were popular before Slam Dunk began, which were Fighting for Tomorrow, Captain Tsubasa, and Hajime no Ippo, which started just under a year before Slam Dunk did. But Slam Dunk was the manga that made sports manga mainstream, and of course, the themes of the manga resonated deeply with everyone that read it, with the raw emotions in the panel that could be felt. Next up is Naruto, another big 3 member. This was just as popular, if not more popular than One Piece at times, with I believe Naruto's influence outside Japan being just a bit more than One Piece's, or at least during the time that they were both airing. Naruto was a very clear underdog story with an extremely loyal fanbase and the quality of the series keeping up till the end. Or at least close to it anyways. And finally, a completely different series by an author of a series that was already here, Vagabond. Originally, I was going to have Berserk here, but I think Vagabond was a bit of a better fit for this, as it has really seinen/mature themes with stunning artwork. And as my friend put it when I dropped Berserk at chapter 3 for the 5th time, Vagabond has a lower bar to entry, which of course isn't a bad thing. And it is full of amazing story arcs, and it's from the author of Slam Dunk. Starting a new decade, it's the 2000s. Even in the last decade, you could see a big shift in the most influential manga. But here, you can see how it progresses a lot more. Though the first manga that I'll nominate is Death Note. This is one of, if not the biggest psychological thriller in the manga genre. It was one of the biggest defining manga of all time, and alongside already huge hits like Dragon Ball and the Big 3, it became a gateway manga, aka a popular manga for new readers to get into manga. Next is the last member of the Big 3, Bleach. As you could guess from its status as one of the Big 3, it was extremely popular in the early 2000s, although it started 2 years after Naruto began, with its atmosphere, characters, and designs making it stand out among manga and even the Big 3. Also, the fights were fucking amazing. The next nomination I have is Full Metal Alchemist. The story, pacing, and action are all fucking amazing. It all makes sense and they all flow into each other perfectly. Each of the villains are also really interesting, and the power system is really great. It is also really popular, so I just had to include it. Next is a really different one compared to the rest of these, Nana. Before it went on hiatus, it was a huge hit, with the lives of 2 polar opposite girls, both named Nana, and their adventures and how their bonds slowly formed, and exploring friendship, relationships, and more. It is completely different from the manga that I have nominated in this decade and the next decades. Next up is another gateway for manga, Attack on Titan. It was the biggest thing back when it began serializing. At the beginning of the serialization, it was a simple, almost survival story of trying to protect his homeland, to deep psychological aspects and moral ambiguity, even with the readers being split, with them siding with the groups that they thought were most righteous. Finally, the 2010s. Which one to start with? Alright, let's do this one. It's My Hero Academia. This was the most popular thing for a few years and pretty much revitalized the superhero genre, which had been slowly dying out with an actually pretty interesting power system and a main character who cries way too much. Next up is... let's do Haikyuu. In the recent years, there hadn't been very many sports manga hits. Sure, there was Hajime no Ippo, which was going strong, but apart from one pretty big sports manga, Kuroko's Basketball, that was really it. Until Haikyuu came along and shook the entire genre, reviving it, with an amazing side cast and surprisingly really fucking amazing games, which you would be surprised by how much you get invested in, if you haven't read or watched it yet. Alright, let's talk about the manga with the most iconic opening in the history of manga. Yeah, that's right, Tokyo Ghoul. The amount of Kaneki profile pictures I've seen is genuinely crazy, especially this fucking panel. Anyways, the art is genuinely amazing, especially for a weekly series. This kind of artwork is crazy. The story isn't anything super innovative, but it is very entertaining. Alright, it's time to mention this manga, Demon Slayer. there was genuinely no escaping it. There is a good chance that the reason you're watching this video and you read manga in general is because you saw Demon Slayer episode 19 and went to read the manga before or after watching it or something else, I don't know. It came at the perfect time when there was a lockdown and everyone was bored, and they saw this little thing being talked about on social media. What I'm trying to say is that during the peak, nothing could even dream of competing with Demon Slayer, and due to its popularity, there were so many new manga readers and manga flourished, though it itself wasn't anything revolutionary. And now, a manga from the person who's about to show us how he can levitate. Chainsaw Man. This is, art-wise, I guess story too, a lot different, maybe Tokyo Ghoul a bit less, than every other nomination for this decade. It is totally unhinged. But I mean, it's from the author of Fire Punch, and that is... that's a whole other beast that would need at least a 2-hour video just to dissect. Chainsaw Man is its own beast, and people love it for that. I mean, it's the 3rd most popular manga on my anime list, and it's the 63rd best rated manga with an average rating of 8.69. Also, Tatsuki Fujimoto has the fucking magic touch, because 5 of his former assistants, publicly announced, have all become successful mangaka. I mean, Tatsuyoki Nobu, the creator of Dandadan, Tatsuya Endo, the creator of Spy Family, Yuji Kaku, the creator of Hell's Paradise and Ayashimon, Oto Toda, the least successful out of all the publicly announced, the creator of Chihaya Furo, middle school art, and collaborated with Tatsuki Fujimoto doing the artwork for Just Listen to the Song, and the latest, Toru Kuranomi, the creator of Centauria. And finally, the 2020s. This one can and probably will change a lot as the decade starts to end, but for now, these will be my nominations, although I think the first nomination won't change, which is Oshinoko. The way it dissects reality of being a celebrity or really any public figure, all of the struggles and highs, toxicity and public opinion, and media constantly watching. It really stands out among modern manga in my opinion. Next up is Frieren. Honestly, this was the first manga that I wish had less fights. I love how the story takes its time to explore the world. The adventure aspect is amazing, with the power system being really good too. Now, Dandadan. With the amazing world building and power system, surprisingly great comedy and action, it has just the right amount of weird to make you want to keep coming back, which also makes you really like the characters as they almost feel real. Alright, well I think the first 3 picks were pretty solid, the last 2... I'm not so sure. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below if you agree. First of the last 2 is Gachiakuta. From what I understand, it is really hype, with a really interesting art style, with an innovative setting, and is the new gen of shonen. The other is Kaiju number 8. I hesitated a lot to put this here, but I think Kaiju number 8 contributed a lot to the popularization of digital manga. It has a really clean art style and a really good, or at least enjoyable, story. Up to the end, where I think it completely started to fumble, and it is one of the most popular manga that is released in recent times. Alright, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe. Finally! This script is done! I counted and it took me 10 fucking hours to write this. Gathering all the information and writing took so much longer than I expected. This might be the most time I've ever spent on writing a script. Anyways, once again, I hope you enjoyed and up to next time. See ya!